Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Thursday, December 27th, 2018. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's bowl games and going to pick today's bowl games as well. Go over yesterday's NBA slate, look ahead to tonight's. Discuss today's college basketball and NHL slates since both of those sports return to action tonight after a holiday hiatus. Going to actually discuss the World Juniors a little bit as that's underway in hockey. And I'm going to do my 2018 NBA ReDraft. And then I'll reveal my best bet of the day. Some college bowl games yesterday. Actually, one, believe it or not, got canceled midway through the first quarter. Boston College and Boise State as BC was up 7-0. They initially delayed the game due to lightning. And then they just outright canceled the game. I feel sorry for the players on both of those two teams. And for the ones that did go on, they were not so good games. The Quick Lane Bowl, Minnesota defeats Georgia Tech 34-10 in what was Paul Johnson's final game at Georgia Tech. And as PJ Fleck and the Golden Gophers get a feel-good win to close out their season, as Minnesota finishes the year at 7-6 and Georgia Tech also finishes at 7-6. And what was an ugly game, TCU defeats Cal 10-7 in overtime. There were combined 9 interceptions in this game as TCU goes to 7-6 and Cal finishes 7-6 as well. You have 3 games on the slate today. I'm going to pick them right now instead of waiting until the end of the podcast to do so. The first game today, we have the Independence Bowl between Temple and Duke. Temple 8-4 on the year, 7-1 in conference play. Duke 7-5 on the year and 3-5 in conference play. 1:30 on ESPN. The Owls lost their head coach to Georgia Tech, but that won't be a distraction to them as their intern guy has been in this position before as an intern for another one of their bowl games after Matt Rhule left for Baylor a few years ago. The Blue Devils have underachieved to some degree this year, mainly due to injuries. Jeff Collins or not, the Owls are the better team, and there's a reason why they're favored in this spot. Give me Temple. The Pinstripe Bowl, Miami 7-5 on the year, 4-4 in conference play. Wisconsin 7-5 on the year, 5-4 in conference play. 5:15 ESPN from Yankee Stadium. Here we have the battle of 2 major disappointments. The Hurricanes and the Badgers both have been solid defensively, but both of them have gotten subpar quarterback play, which held those 2 teams back throughout the season. This was a hard call, but I just trust the Badgers here more than the Canes. So give me Wisconsin and Paul Chryst to defeat Mark Richt in Miami. The Texas Bowl, you have Baylor against Vanderbilt, 9 o'clock ESPN. Baylor 6-6 on the year, 4-5 in conference play. Vanderbilt 6-6 on the year, 3-5 in conference play. Matt Rhule and Derek Mason both deserve credit for taking their teams here, as neither team was thought to be a bowl team this year for the most part. I do think this will be a pretty high-scoring affair, and I think Kyle Shermer leads the way for the Commodores to get the win. So give me Vanderbilt here in this bowl spot. And now for against the spread and whatnot, give me Temple minus 3.5, Wisconsin plus 2.5 with the stab on the money line, and Vanderbilt minus 4. So I'm just taking the sides rather than the totals here. NBA, from last night, we had a majority of the league in action. The Pistons defeat the Wizards 106-95. Detroit improves to 16-16. Washington drops to 13-22. Blake Griffin, 23 points with 9 boards and 6 dishes. Andre Drummond, 16 points and 11 boards. Reggie Jackson, 19 points and 6 dishes. Langston Galloway off the bench had 22 points, including 4 3-pointers. John Wall and Bradley Beal each had 21. Trevor Ariza had 16. Markieff Morris off the bench had 12. And Jan Mahimny off the bench had 10. The Suns defeat the Magic 122-120 in overtime, as Phoenix goes to 9-26 and Orlando drops to 14-19. Devin Booker, 35 points, 7 boards, and 8 assists. He's becoming like their version of James Harden, pretty much, in front of their own eyes. And TJ Warren, 24 points. Off the bench, Kelly Oubre Jr. had 19, and Josh Jackson off the bench had 10. DJ Augustine got the start at point guard for Orlando. He had 27 with 6 dishes. Nikola Vucevic had 22 points and 13 boards. Evan Fournier had 16 with 4 rebounds and 5 assists. And Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac each had 11. Jonathan Simmons had 11 off the bench, and Terrence Ross had 18 off the bench. The Pacers defeat the Hawks 129-121 as Indiana improves to 23-12. Atlanta drops to 9-24. Thaddeus Young had 21 points and 5 boards. Bogdan Bogdanovic had 16 with 5 boards. Miles Turner and Darren Collison each had 11. Victor Oladipo had 16 with 7 dishes and 7 boards. Domantas Sabonis had 19 with 8 boards off the bench. Corey Joseph had 14 off the bench with 6 assists. And Tyreek Evans off the bench had 19. The Nets defeat the Hornets 134-132 in double overtime. This was the game of the night last night as Brooklyn improves to 17-19. Charlotte drops to 16-17. Big win for Brooklyn. Spencer Dinwiddie, 37 points and 11 assists off the bench. Joe Harris had 27, including 5 three-pointers and a couple big ones to help force overtime. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, 16 points and 15 boards. Rodions Caruso, 13 points and 12 boards. D'Angelo Russell had 16, and also off the bench, DeMarre Carroll had 12. Meanwhile, for Charlotte, Kemba Walker had 35.6 boards and 5 assists. Jeremy Lamb had 31. Nick Batum had 13. Marvin Williams had 14. Tony Parker had 10 off the bench. The Raptors defeat the Heat 106-104. I think Miami should have won this game, but give Toronto credit for pulling this one out as they avoid a little trap and improve to 26-10. Miami drops to 16-17. Kawhi Leonard, 30 points and 8 boards. Fred VanVleet had 16. Danny Green had 18. Pascal Siakam had 10 with 9 boards. Bench didn't do much for the Raptors as Jonas Valanciunas did not play. Justice Winslow, who believe it or not got the start at point guard, 21 points. Hassan Whiteside had 16 with 12 boards. Josh Richardson had 17 with 7 assists. James Johnson had 12 with 6 boards. Off the bench, Tyler Johnson had 12 and Dwayne Wade had 10. The Timberwolves defeated the Bulls 119-94 as Minnesota improves to 16-18. Chicago drops to 9-26. Derrick Rose returned to Chicago. Big game for him. 24 points and 8 assists. Even got some MVP chants from the Chicago crowd as they still love a guy that they thought was going to be their franchise player. Karl Anthony Towns had a 20-20. Andrew Wiggins had 14. Taj Gibson had 16 in his Chicago return. Off the bench, Dario Saric had 12. Tyus Jones had 13. And meanwhile, for the Bulls, Lauri Markkanen had 16 with 7 boards. Wendell Carter Jr. had 12 with 9 boards. Zach LaVine off the bench had 28. The Grizzlies defeat the Cavaliers 95-87. As Memphis goes to 18-16, Cleveland drops to 8-27. Marc Gasol had 20 points, 9 boards, and 6 assists. Mike Conley had 15 with 8 assists. Garrett Temple had 11. Jared Jackson Jr. had 11. Kyle Anderson had 15. Their bench didn't do anything. Colin Sexton had 16. Off the bench, Jordan Clarkson had 24. And C.D. Osman had 10. The Mavericks defeated the Pelicans 122-119 in another entertaining game. Dallas improves to 16-17. New Orleans drops to 15-20. Luka Doncic was a rebound shy of a triple-double. 21 points, 9 boards, and 10 assists. Harrison Barnes had 16. DeAndre Jordan had 20. Max Kleber had 10. J.J. Barea had 18 off the bench, and Devin Harris off the bench had 16. Anthony Davis had 32 points and 18 boards. Julius Randle, 23 points. Drew Holiday, 25 points, 5 boards, and 6 assists. And Frank Jackson off the bench had 10. The Spurs defeat the Nuggets 111-103. San Antonio improves to 19-16. Denver drops to 21-11. The Spurs have really turned things around here after a bit of a slow start. DeMar DeRozan had 30.7 boards and 5 assists. LaMarcus Aldridge had 27. Bryn Forbes had 15. Marco Bellinelli had 12. Juan Hernan Gomez had 27 with 13 boards. Torrey Craig had 10. Off the bench, Malik Beasley had 22, including 4 3-pointers. And Monte Morris had 15. He's been quietly one of the more improved bench players in the league. The Clippers defeat the Kings 127-118. Clippers improved to 2014. Sacramento drops to 18-16. Lou Williams, 24 points off the bench with 6 assists. Every Clipper starter was in double digits. Daniel Gallinari had 14. Tobias Harris had 17. Bojan Marjanovic had 11. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 13. Avery Bradley had 15. Also off the bench, Montrezl Harrell had 22 points and 9 boards. Sacramento came back and made this interesting, but the Clippers made their free throws late to put it away. Every Sacramento starter in double digits as well. Buddy Hield, Nemanja Bjelica, and Willie Cauley-Stein each had 11. De'Aaron Fox had 19 with 9 dishes and 6 boards, and Iman Shumpert had 12. Bojan Bogdanovic had 13 off the bench, and Ben McLemore had 11 off the bench. Tonight's slate is a little smaller. You have the Knicks at the Bucks at 8 o'clock. Your 8 o'clock TNT game, you have the Celtics at the Rockets. The Celtics are a 1.5 favorite. I don't understand that. James Harden's going to play, according to multiple reports. And I believe those reports are true. Give me the Rockets at home. But if James Harden doesn't play, then the Celtics are going to win this game. So I'm banking on Harden to play. I don't see Harden sitting out against a good team from the East. So the Rockets are under a bit of pressure. They're at home. They want to follow up that Oklahoma City win with another good win at home. Harden will play. Give me the Rockets. 10 o'clock, you have the Lakers at the Kings. No LeBron James. 10:30 TNT, you have the 76ers at the Jazz. I really like the Jazz in this spot. 76ers first game on the West Coast trip. First game on the West Coast for Eastern Conference teams never bodes well. So give me Utah to win, and they'll cover that 5.5 easily. And then the Trailblazers at the Warriors. I can't wait for that game. Disappointed that that's not the TNT game because I'm just fascinated to see how the Warriors respond after the beatdown by the Lakers on Christmas Day. College Hoops returns tonight after a one-day hiatus. It's only one game, though. It's between UMKC and Creighton. The NHL returns tonight as well. You have at 7 o'clock the Blue Jackets at the Rangers, the Devils at the Bruins, the Red Wings at the Penguins, the Hurricanes at the Capitals. 7:30 on NBCSN. You have the Flyers at the Lightning. Give me Tampa Bay in their home arena to get a good win over a somewhat resurgent Flyers team. 8 o'clock, Sabres, Blues, Stars, Predators, Flames, Jets. 8:30, Wild, Blackhawks. 9 o'clock, Canucks, Oilers. 10 o'clock, Avalanche, Golden Knights. 10:30, Coyotes, Kings, and Ducks, Sharks. So a pretty nice slate tonight. Another storyline game is Tortorella in New York. I just think that's fun, and I think he likes beating the Rangers, and I think the Rangers like getting up the play against the Tortorella teams. Even though a lot of those players that are on Tortorella's teams are gone, but some of them remain. Obviously, Henrik Lundqvist wants to play well against his former coach. Mats Zuccarello's still there. He was on those teams, but he was always like a healthy scratch. And Chris Kreider's still there. And John Tortorella wasn't a big fan of him. So I could see the Rangers getting up and pulling off a home upset tonight over Columbus. If there's a looming upset anywhere, I'd pick that. But if whoever's the underdog in Blue Sabres would be a good pick too. My NBA redraft for 2018. This is a bit controversial. Some of this is recency bias. But this is certainly going to change after the season when I do this. Number 1, the Phoenix Suns, Luka Doncic. Boy, did they make a mistake. I like Ayton. I do think he's going to be a good player. But Luka Doncic is special. That guy's clearly the best player from this draft class. This guy's going to be an MVP winner in the future. Mark Cuban, yes, he gave up a lot to trade up to get this guy, but it will be worth it in the end for him. As, could you imagine Doncic and Booker in the same backcourt? That would be lethal. 2, the Sacramento Kings, DeAndre Ayton. So the number 1 overall pick just drops to number 2. Ayton's a solid player, will be a solid player. He puts up double-doubles, mostly on a nightly basis. And he probably is better long-term than Willie Cauley-Stein. So if the Kings were to have picked Ayton here, then in theory they'd probably trade Willie Cauley-Stein if they had the opportunity to get Ayton. 3, the Dallas Mavericks, Jaren Jackson Jr. So their quote-unquote consolation prize is Jaren Jackson Jr., who's been a fine rookie on a resurgent Grizzlies team. Number 4, the Memphis Grizzlies, Kevin Knox. I just think this guy has worked his butt off these last couple weeks and really has proven himself to be a steal at where the Knicks took him at 9. And after a slow start to his season, he's looking like the player the Knicks thought they were going to get with the number 9 pick. And he is proven to be a steal. I think he's going to win the Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month for the month of December, as he's been the Eastern Conference's best rookie this month. And he's on a nice little string of games with 15 points or more as a rookie, and no Knick has done that since Patrick Ewing. This guy's impressive. I think he's only going to get better. Number 5, the Atlanta Hawks, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This kid has been very impressive on a somewhat surprising Clippers team. He's been starting for them of late, and Doc Rivers really likes this kid. He's hit some big shots for the Clippers and has made some smart decisions. Number 6, the Orlando Magic, Marvin Bagley, who drops from number 2 to number 6. He probably would be their starting power forward or even their starting center if the team would have moved on from Nikola Vucevic or Aaron Gordon. But in this current day, in the current Magic, he'd be coming off the bench. And Gilgeous-Alexander would probably be starting for Atlanta. Kevin Knox would be starting at small forward for the Grizzlies over the washed-up Chandler Parsons and whoever else they would have starting at small forward right now. Jaren Jackson Jr. would be starting at power forward for Dallas. And then obviously Doncic would be starting anywhere on Phoenix. And Ayton, I think, would start over Cauley-Stein in Sacramento, assuming that Sacramento, in theory, would move on from Cauley-Stein. 7, the Chicago Bulls, Trae Young. Trae Young has been up and down this year. He's taking a lot of shots. I think he's just trying too hard for the Rookie of the Year award. He's been good for the most part, but there's been some lackadaisical performances from Young as well. Would he be the Bulls' starting point guard right now? I'd say that's debatable. Chris Dunn's had some moments, good and bad, and so has Trae Young. So if you're asking me, I'd say he'd probably come off the bench on the Bulls. 8, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Colin Sexton, no do-over here as the Cavs take their franchise point guard in Sexton. He's shown some flashes this year, and I think he's going to be their point guard for a long time, eventually. Number 9, the New York Knicks. Wendell Carter Jr. He drops from 7 to 9. And he would have been a nice fit on this Knicks team. I think he'd be their starting power forward. For right now, to go with Enes Kanter in their front court, and then once Kristaps Porzingis would have came back, maybe they would have traded Kanter and then put him at center. He would have been a nice fit on the Knicks with Kristaps Porzingis, but he's also been a pretty solid player on the Bulls, starting in their front court with Lauri Markkanen. Number 10, the Phoenix Suns, who traded up to the spot on draft night, Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba showed some flashes so far in his brief NBA tenure, but he's also very raw. He could become a pretty good shot blocker down the road. And would he be starting on this Phoenix Suns team? Probably. Assuming that they take Doncic 1 and then Ayton goes second to Sacramento, then yeah, Bamba would be starting on Phoenix. Number 11, the Los Angeles Clippers, Mikal Bridges. Bridges has shown some flashes on the Suns this year, but he hasn't gotten the playing time that I think he deserves. On a team with Doc Rivers as its head coach, he always finds ways to use his bench and sees what he has, and I think Mikal would have thrived with Doc. Would have he been a starter on the Clippers? No. But he certainly, I think, could have had an impact off their bench. Number 12, the Charlotte Hornets, Miles Bridges. I don't think he's getting the fair treatment from James Barrios, whatever their coach's name is. But I do think he'll become a good player someday. 13, the Los Angeles Clippers, Michael Porter Jr. Yes, he hasn't played in an NBA game yet this year, but this guy has a ton of potential, and if he stayed healthy, he would have went number 1 overall this year, and he would have been a Phoenix Sun. But what if he been better than Luka Doncic? I don't know. Number 14, the Denver Nuggets, Aaron Holiday, who has been a solid backup point guard for the Pacers. I think he'll eventually be their starting point guard when it's all said and done, because I don't think Darren Collison is the long-term guy for Indiana. But Holiday has really shown me something this year, coming off the bench for Indiana, and I think he would have been a nice fit off the bench for Denver. 15, the Washington Wizards, Alonzo Trier. This guy has been a surprise rookie on the lowly New York Knicks. He could be a future sixth man someday, and he would have been a nice fit on the Wizards coming off the bench as well. 16, the Philadelphia 76ers, Landry Shamet. Oh, how ironic that they get a player that is their own, but a little higher in the redraft. He's really shown me a lot and has been one of the more surprising players on the Sixers this year. 17, the Milwaukee Bucks, Dante DiVincenzo. No do-over here as the Bucks take their man in DiVincenzo. He's shown some flashes off the bench so far, and I do think he'll eventually become a good three-point shooter someday. Number 18, the San Antonio Spurs, Rodions Caruso, a surprising rookie starting on the Brooklyn Nets who has really shown some flashes of late. He can shoot the three ball, he can rebound well as well, and he'd be the perfect fit on Greg Popovich's team. 19, the Atlanta Hawks, Kevin Huerter. No do-over here as they take their guy in Huerter. He's come off the bench for Atlanta for the most part, and he's done pretty well, and I think he'll get better as a player. Number 20 is the Minnesota Timberwolves, Omari Spellman. He's been getting a lot of minutes on a bad Hawks team, but he's shown a capability of getting double-doubles, and I think he'd be a fine fit off the bench on Tim Thibodeau's team. Number 21, the Utah Jazz, DeAnthony Melton, who's shown flashes with the Phoenix Suns this year. He'd be a nice guy off the bench for Quinn Snyder. Number 22, the Chicago Bulls, Troy Brown Jr. He hasn't gotten the minutes that he should be on a Washington team that's been so up and down this year. But I think he would have been a nice fit on a rebuilding Bulls team coming off the bench. And the guy they took in this spot, Chandler Hutchinson, just to see what you have here. Number 23, the Indiana Pacers, Josh Okogie, who has shown some flashes off the bench for Tom Thibodeau's team. He certainly would help Indiana coming off their bench. 24, the Portland Trailblazers, Lonnie Walker. Yes, he hasn't played a minute in the NBA yet in his career, but I do think he'll be a fine player for Greg Popovich's team. He's a guy that I think would be a nice third guard off the bench on the Blazers. Nick Stauskas has been a nice surprise this year, but I don't know how long that would last. I really like Lonnie Walker, who I think could eventually become a starter someday down the road. 2015, the Los Angeles Lakers, Moritz Wagner, no do-over here, as the Lakers take the guy that they originally drafted. Wagner hasn't really played much this year. I thought there's a chance that he'd eventually be their starting center, but that's really has changed as the Lakers have 4 centers on their roster, including Wagner, Ivica Zubac, who's been their starting center these last couple games with JaVale McGee out, and then they have Tyson Chandler coming off the bench, and he's been an impactful addition to the Lakers already. And I really like Wagner. Maybe they used him as a trade bait to go out and get somebody, but I do think he'll be a good starting center in the league someday. I think that's his upside. 26, the Philadelphia 76ers, Grayson Allen. This guy would be an absolute perfect 76er. A guy that has a little bit of charisma to him. Yeah, he has some baggage, but this guy can shoot and can shoot the 3 ball. He hasn't really gotten the minutes on the Jazz, but I just love the idea of him on Philly and the fact that he could just come off the bench and hit threes and change a game, and with Joel Embiid on that team, just a bunch of crazy personalities on that team. So I love that fit for Grayson Allen, although I do think he'll help the Jazz down the road. 27, the Boston Celtics, Elie Okobo. This guy has shown some promise with the Phoenix Suns. He's started some games and other games have come off the bench. I think he'd be a nice guard off the bench for Boston down the road. Number 28, the Golden State Warriors, Hamidou Diallo. He's shown some promise coming off the bench for a contender in Oklahoma City. The Warriors bench is not very good, and I think Diallo could have helped them. 29, the Brooklyn Nets, Mitchell Robinson, who's been a surprisingly decent backup center for the Knicks this year when healthy, but he's injured right now, so he hasn't played very much. And when he's played, he's shown his ability to block the rim and do a bunch of little things. And the one thing I don't like about him, though, is that he gets into foul trouble. But other than that, he's been pretty promising. He shoots at a high percentage. And I love, like I said, he's a good rim protector. And it wouldn't be surprising to see him as the starting center of the Knicks at the end of the season if they were to trade on his canter. And number 30, the Atlanta Hawks, Robert Williams, who hasn't gotten the minutes that I think he deserves on the Celtics. This guy was a projected lottery pick and fell pretty low. When a guy drops in a draft, it's usually a red flag, but I just think that a guy like Robert Williams deserves to see some more playing time on the Celtics. And that's my redraft for the 2018 NBA draft. I'll probably do another one before the playoffs. And now, last but not least, my best bet of the day, brought to you by DraftKings. An 8-teamer. Vanderbilt, the Bucks over the Knicks. The Jazz over the 76ers. By the way, Vandy over Baylor. Capitals, the Penguins, the Bruins. And those were the 3 NHL teams I had on my parlay yesterday that didn't work out because Georgia Tech lost. The Tampa Bay Lightning and Sweden in the World Juniors. Plus 10-12, I laid a $2.15 to win $23 $1.91. And that's it for today. I'll talk about the World Juniors more tomorrow, as it was underway today. Just didn't have time to get into it, really. And Duke, by the way, just scored a touchdown to go up 6-0 in the Independence Bowl. So tomorrow I'm just going to recap all the bowls, NBA, college hoops, NHL. Going to do my MLB redraft for 2018. Actually, that's going to be Saturday. No podcast tomorrow. My bad. So Saturday I'm going to recap everything. Going to do my 2018 MLB redraft as 2018 comes to a close. I'll do my best bet for Saturday as well, and I hope you guys have a great day, everyone.